It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another Real Estate Breakfast as we navigate together through our 2025 year every morning, talking to all of the expert real estate commentators right around the country. If they are leading your market in real estate, we are talking to them one by one for their analysis, trends and predictions. It is a Sunday, September the 21st, and talking of 2025, only 101 days left until Christmas morning, and that has just made it real on our Sunday. And if you're planning on booking accommodation, do it now, do it today. Don't leave it, especially for those Airbnbs, otherwise you'll get to those too late, all booked out. And the best of real estate from around Australia over the last 7 days is coming up. On Monday, we spoke to Jeff and Luke, two Melbourne auctioneers who didn't hold back and gave us what they thought on the market. Also, Craig Hyne in Gingin, there in WA, was telling us about his market. Andrea Heading, she is the Chief Executive from the Real Estate Institute of South Australia. She was here giving us numbers and breakdowns, along with Nicola Powell from Domain. And we also spoke to Shane Spiteri from Melton, and we spoke about him retiring at the young age of 34 from real estate. So all of that is coming up in just a moment. Don't forget, if you would like to leave us a voice message, your voice can be heard along with others. You'll find the leave a message link below, or if you would like to send us an email, our email address, as always, myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com.
We are your local source for unbiased, expert insights into the world of real estate. We are not a real estate company. Our only objective is to help you better understand the real estate market.
Now, we are talking auctions, so what do you think with regard to people going down the EOI or auction track? What is kind of transpiring between those two?
Definitely. It should be property dependent. There are some properties that would be more suited to an EOI campaign. And that may be situated on a main road, compromised location, those factors where it may limit competition. Considerations for, should we actually start as an EOI? Because I think being dynamic and being able to adjust, if you have a busy campaign that started as an EOI or a private sale, there's no reason why you can't convert that to an auction. I think the marketplace sees that as positive change. But if you start as an auction and you cancel it or it passes in, the market views that as a negative. So I don't think there's any harm sometimes just starting it as a private sale or an EOI if you're not sure, and then feeling out the first 7 days of the campaign and making that decision. Do we convert to an auction or do we keep going as an EOI private sale?
Okay, let's go back to you, Jeff, because I want to talk about underquoting, and that is a real thing in both main markets of Melbourne and Sydney in particular. How are you finding that at the moment?
Oh, it's disgusting. I won't hold back on it. I talk to 250 agents a month right across Melbourne. I buy between 15 and 20 properties a month across Melbourne. 80% of agents out there are completely aware that they are underquoting. You'd lose your mind if I actually told you some examples, recent weeks, where properties in the 1 to 1.1 range for houses have gone on to sell for 1.5. And they're not even on the market at 1.3. They break and consult with the vendor for instructions. But there was one particularly property in the eastern suburbs. It was initially quoted at 1.75 to 1.85. I, on behalf of a client, offered the agent the week before the auction. It was on the Wednesday, actually, so we complied with no cooling off period, which is what the agents are focused on. They hate selling longer than 3 days out of an auction. So I offered $2 million when the quote was 1.75 to 1.85, unconditionally, 30-day settlement or settlement to suit the vendor, whatever they preferred. I was shut down quicker than a child could throw his salad sandwich away at lunchtime. They just said, forget it, Jeff. if you're not in the hunt, we've got that covered from a number of people. We're getting 100 people through the open on a Saturday in half an hour. They knew damn well they were going to fly past 2 million. It sold for just under 2.5 million. They maintained that quote under 2 million, even though I had offered it, which is a complete breach. I didn't report them, but I probably should have.
There are certain people that are being gunned for, and we've got that example where a licence has been pulled. Do you think the penalties, because it's been argued that the penalties are not severe enough, what's your thoughts and thinking around that?
I don't see any of these special task force operators the government set up a few years ago to stamp this out. I think it should be a 3-strike rule. That's going to clean it up. First offence, pretty heavy warning. Second offence, a substantial fine. Third offence, you lose your licence for 2 years. That's going to get it cleaned up.
Let's go back to you, Luke, because I want to talk about plenty of buyers, but not necessarily pulling the trigger. How are you finding that?
That's a really good point. I think that's what is driving the market at the moment. We're definitely seeing an increase bodies through the front door at open for inspections, but there's a real divide between purchasers at the moment that are finance ready, know what they want, and are really clear on, I guess, their strategy to purchase. But then there's also the other side of the coin. They're still in the research phase. They're not quite sure on the marketplace they want to buy in. You know, we're in Melbourne. Do they want to buy in Ringwood? Do they want to buy in Blackburn? Potentially Mount Waverley, Glen Waverley, and they're still in that research phase. And I think that's probably the next wave of growth once that portion of the market has made the decision, because it's quite large. We're finding people that portion's quite significant. And once they start to morph into buyers that are ready to pull the trigger, I think that's when we're going to start seeing that really heavy growth phase. And hopefully that occurs for sellers in the next month or two, because they've had it really rough, particularly down here in Melbourne with the tax implications, along with higher interest rates. We've really felt the brunt of it down here, while the rest of the country certainly enjoyed some growth.
Yeah, the latest figures for Gingin town was 675, the median house price, which is considerably lower than the metro area. So again, it's affordability is a big issue. People can get a larger piece of land, a spacious home, a lot less than what they would pay for the same thing in Perth, only half an hour away.
Under 700 grand, you're saying getting a larger piece of land. How big is the site for something like that? And you're getting a 4-bedroom home?
Yeah, well, the lots that we're selling, most of the lots in these regional towns within the Gingin Shire are at least 1,000 square metres. So you find that 1,000 square metre vacant blocks are selling for around 200,000. Yeah, and you're getting for 700,000, you'd get a reasonable 3 to 4 bedroom home. 800,000 would buy you a very, very nice home.
So just coming back to that report, Gingin, it has emerged as this hotspot that they're reporting for city movers, recording that massive 273.7% rise in net inflows. Gee, it's got to be sort of quite a year for you, or the last couple of years, with what's going on, is it?
People don't want to leave when they come here, and I think that's where that statistic is telling that the number of people wanting to move into the Shire is much higher than the people moving out, which for regional areas, historically, that's been the opposite way. But since COVID, certainly, we've found people are preferring to live regional and moving out of the metro area. So it's a great place to live, great lifestyle, and that's showing in the figures.
What about those numbers coming in from PropTrack? You know, it's pretty remarkable, and it's only across a 5-year period from 492,000 for a house to right up into the 900,000.
A big thing that happened, and I know everyone talks COVID, but certainly there was an accelerated return of expats to Adelaide across 21, 22, as the lockout laws were in other states, when there was that window of opportunity to be able to, quickly jump borders. So we did see a big return of what sort of people coming home that, might have left a long time ago. They certainly had deeper pockets, more money to spend than, say, traditionally what, socioeconomically this market look like? Really, the growth started happening from 20, 21, 22 to the point where we are now, where it's sort of like just under $1 million according to the PropTrack results. It's the style of buyer that's coming, probably the money that they've got to spend, maybe cost of living pressures for them that might have been, is a different scenario here in SA than what it was in other markets. Other thing that works really in our favour too is the fact we've got low unemployment figures. So there's this double salary. It's a sort of healthy state, or it's a healthier state to be in at the moment. A lot of factors that are sort of making these sort of prices rise.
And Andrea, I'll get you to just talk about these units that are under $500,000. Buyers can still find them in some different suburbs in your city.
And probably looking at the list, like, one suburb I'll call out, which is Karalta Park, around 381,000. Really, that's sort of like, we're always called the 15-minute city, 15 minutes from here to the beach or the hills or whatever. But certainly that is what we would call, almost in a metro. Facility-wise around there, it's great shopping centres. There's infrastructure support behind it as well.
Grab your weekly dose of inspiration to help build a real estate portfolio. We talk to the best in the business every day. Learn from the professionals and know your property with us.
That is absolutely true, and a very good morning to you too. But what we have seen is an increase in people searching for granny flat. In Sydney, it is now the number one search term. So normally the number one search term is actually pool, but pool has been knocked off of that top spot and it's now been taken by granny flat. And some of the other capital cities are also seeing granny flat reach into their top 10 search terms for this spring. In Brisbane, it came in as the 7th search term, most frequent search term. In Adelaide, it was at number 9, and in Perth, it was number 2. Didn't actually make the top 10, interestingly, in Melbourne. Didn't even make the top 20 in Melbourne. But other capital cities, it's certainly rising through the ranks.
Now, why is that happening? Well, it's got everything to do with affordability. That is driving the search behaviour. Buyers are increasingly prioritising affordability and flexibility, as you guys have reported as of today, because this big report is out, and it makes sense, obviously. I mean, just the way that the cost of the market is, granny flats, they stack up.
It does, and I think it's not surprising that Sydney's really leading the way in terms of search terms from buyers looking for a granny flat. We know that Sydney is the most unaffordable capital city, and I think that those affordability pressures are really shifting buyer preferences. I think there's other things as well. I think, and it does still feed into affordability, but an increase in multi-generational living, demographic shifts is probably also helping to increase demand towards granny flats. We've got adult children living at home for longer, but also the flip scenario as well, with older parents moving back in and us caring for our aging parents. So I think, when you're looking for a home that also has a granny flat, you're seeking that flexibility, self-contained spaces. And I think what we're reimagining is actually what we want from our homes. But I do think there's other things. Planning and policy also has factored in here. I think what we've seen over many years is states and councils have eased secondary dwelling approvals, which I think in essence does help to normalise having a granny flat. So it's making it a more of a mainstream housing solution. It's much easier today to add a granny flat in the back garden than it was, 5 or 10 years ago.
I like to show a property how it should be, but there are a lot of people that try to catfish to get you to the property. I mean, at the end of the day, we are salespeople that trying to get as many people to the properties as we can and to sell the property for the best price. Germaphobe with the socks, I think that's pretty funny. I mean, there are some special things that you can do these days, especially like doctors and nurses do by bringing those little pull-on blue slipovers that's straight over your shoes, if that's the thing that gets you through it. But I am the same. I mean, most people I believe allow shoes on because it makes people do feel comfortable. So it's just depending on how clean the home is and if it's a wet day. I mean, if it's a wet day, definitely shoes off. It's understandable for people. It's just respect. If it's good weather, I mean, I don't mind if the shoes are on as long as you ask the vendors to make people feel comfortable.
Yes, I'll probably stop short of wearing those surgical slip-ons. That might look just a little bit more weirder than socks. Just want to come back to a comment about catfishing. What do you reckon is a couple of the really bad ones? You don't do it, but some of the bad ones that you've seen when it comes to catfishing and getting people onto a property?
Well, it's just, for example, like the grass. I mean, you can over-edit grass from brown grass to bright green, and then you look at the aerial shots and the grass is dead. So to me, it's doing the right thing at the end of the day by the property. I mean, a lot of agents also tend to use staging furniture, but the furniture's not in the home. It's just furnished by online. So when the clients get to the property, it's not the same property that they thought they were going to see. So to me, that's called catfishing. It's like you're on a date and you're meant to meet the most beautiful person that you think it is, and you get there and you can't even find them in the restaurant. It's because the person that you thought you were meeting is not that person. I think that's the same as real estate. I believe in showing what the house actually is and not over-editing your pics.
Has that happened to you? Has it? Have you gone out on a date? Because that happened to me about 10 years ago. Went out on a date and a completely different person. And I had to say, look, I hope you don't mind me asking, but the photo that is on your dating site, how old is that? And she said, oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's about 15 years old. I don't take a good photo.
That's kind of the thing of why I call it catfishing. I find it similar to that. And there's enough Netflix shows these days on those shows to show what people do.
No, did right. Now, let's talk a little bit about you, because we were talking off air and you were telling me that you got involved in the real estate industry at the age of 18. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, you are retiring at the age of 34. You've sold your businesses, been in real estate, what is that, about 17 odd years?
Correct. I'm very excited. I've worked my little butt off for the last 17 years and I love what I do, but it's time for me to take my next career. I want to get into coaching. I believe there's no new coaches taking over the real estate, but I also work 6 days a week, every week, and I'm that yes person to make things happen. So now it's time for me to look after my life and actually have a life instead of a real estate life, is because I believe if you do the job in real estate, you got to throw it all in there. You got to work after hours. You got to work 6 days a week, every week. Plus Sundays, you got to answer your phone. You've got to be always on if you want to be successful or at the top end of your game. That's what I've done, and it's proof in the pudding, because I started with nothing. I've now managed 36 staff members, 3 offices. But yes, I am excited to get out of the selling and listing side and get agents to the next level and get them selling and making me proud on that, because I believe real estate is easy in a way if you know how to do it.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.